Hi, my name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Today we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. No doubt this is probably one of the most well-known verses in Proverbs, and for good reason. It is an important verse. It sets forth a very important principle for parents to remember. I think it's a misunderstood verse at times, and I'll explain that a little later. But the verse establishes a principle. It's simply this: that parents train up children. They teach children by their words, by their actions, and by their lives. Parents do this. They may do it purposefully, deliberately, or they may do it inadvertently without much forethought put into it. But the reality is we as parents train our children. And we've talked about this in earlier studies. The parental influence on a child is profound. It is life-shaping. And as our verse says, it is long-lasting. Because of the profound impact parents have on children, we might say parents train up a child in the way they will go. Habit patterns, values, priorities, hobbies are often passed down from parent to child. If a parent likes sports, it's often that a child will like sports. If a parent likes a certain team, the child will like that certain team. They drive a certain kind of car. The kids are going to grow up looking for that kind of car, and so on. What children believe about marriage and morality, how to treat your spouse, spiritual issues, church attendance, attitudes towards serving, and so on. All are learned by watching and listening to parents. And we teach them about these things, whether we're doing it on purpose or not. They're learning as they watch us and listen to us. The reason this verse is so important is the end of the verse. The consequence of this learning, that even when they are old, he will not depart from it. Now, we need to understand, as I said, this is a misunderstood verse, and I think we forget what it's really saying. This is not a promise, per se. It's not so much a promise as an observational reality. This is what, if you sit on a bench and watch parents and children raising their kids, when those kids leave the home, most times that child is going to be a whole lot like that parent in attitudes and in many other ways. It's a good promise if the children are raised with biblical values, a good home, a godly home, and a joyful home. There's no perfect homes, but none of those exist. But a home that understands forgiveness and love and esteeming others better than themselves, and where each lives for the other, and so on. You want those things to stick with your child as they leave home. So if you've taught those things deliberately, if you've taught those things by the way you've lived, they will go with them when they leave home. How a child is raised sets them on a trajectory that stays with them for life. Attitude towards government and authority and bosses and rules in general, and so on. Having a personal relationship with Christ. If parents are paying attention, they will often hear from their kids things that they themselves have said, and that can be a good thing or can be a horrifying thing. But it simply illustrates what this verse is saying. What children learn in the home goes with them when they leave the home, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Now, we need to clarify here that children are obviously responsible for their own lives and their choices they make. We cannot save our children. We can teach them about sin and about Christ and the cross, but they have to make the decision to follow Christ and believe on him on their own. But sometimes we make life harder for our kids by teaching them things, maybe not formally, but by example, that are going to make their lives maybe harder than they needed to. For example, how we respond to authority, how we talk about authority in our home, whether we teach them the importance of being on time, getting up on time to get to school, getting up on time to get to work, having a discipline to not just go by what you feel like on any given day, but you get up because you know we have responsibility and you're responsible. They're learning to be kind and polite, how they talk to people, and so on. Those things don't just happen. Those lessons are taught early, age appropriately, obviously, but they're taught by the way that we talk to them. They're learned by the way we see us talk. They see their parents talk to others. These things are taught one way or the other. Our children are going to learn things as they watch us, and they're things about what we've just talked about. And obviously, people can change. Even if we're older and have left home and maybe we didn't grow up in the best of homes, we're still responsible for our actions, and God can change us. We cannot use our parents as an excuse for our bad behavior. The gospel can change hearts. It can change people. But I think understanding and reminding ourselves of the profound simplicity of this verse as parents can go a long way in shaping and sharpening our parents. More parenting on purpose. Seeing the profound impact we're going to have on our children one way or the other should help us think more seriously about how we talk around the kids. What are we modeling before those kids? Is it going to be help them or harm them as they leave our home and go out on their own? And so we parent on purpose, not just shooting from the hip. We parent with a long-range view in mind, not just trying to get through the moment. We're parenting according to biblical values and attitudes and actions, not just cultural ones. And this verse is not a promise that if we take our child to church and then in their teen years they leave the church, when they get older they will return to church. That's how I think I've heard that verse interpreted in my whole life. And it would be nice if that was all it was saying. It's a nice promise. However, it's much wider and deeper than that. It's a parenting principle every parent needs to take to heart. This is not a promise, but a general observational reality. It's both sobering and encouraging. The things that we teach them as parents in our life, in our talk, these things are going to follow our kids as they leave home, and they will not depart from them. Will the things they're learning from us as parents make their lives a blessing to others and a life that God will bless? Or are we setting them up for a hard life because we're not taking the time to train them about biblical values and how we really should be as Christians and the things that should model and be found in our lives? So may this truth guide us and guard us in the trenches of life, which is seek to live our lives and raise our children to the glory of God and the good of others. May God bless.